New Zealand has been rattled by a new magnitude 6.2 earthquake off the coast of the South Island. Thousands of people had to evacuate from coastal areas and seek higher ground. Officials also told people to leave an area where a dam was breached. This new quake comes only hours after another more powerful earthquake killed at least 2 people and triggered a tsunami 2 meters high.
In terms of getting a better assessment of what happens next, we have military helicopters that are available to us. The NH90 is going to be going down to Kaikoura very rapidly. The area is cut off from a road perspective, so there's somewhat a limit of what we can do in the first instance, but we obviously want to put one of those helicopters down there. There's another one that will be in Wellington.
Let's go to Caitlin McGee now, who is in Auckland. Hi there, Caitlin. The aftershocks continue. What's been the impact of these latest tremors?
Well, the damage is proving to be quite extensive. So Prime Minister John Key and our Civil Defence Minister have flown down to Kaikoura, which is essentially the area most affected by that quake. As you saw in some of those pictures, there's been whole coastal roads that have been buried by the landslides. The rail link has been decimated. People living there have no power. And John Key said it was actually much worse than he first thought. And he thinks it will take months to fix and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, it wasn't just the South Island that's been damaged. The capital, Wellington, which sits at the bottom of the North Island, has also had its roads ripped up. And most people have been told not to go into the central business district today and have been advised to stay at home.
You talked a bit about those roads being still heavily obstructed. Have rescuers been able to get to people, though?
Yeah, there's been quite a concerted rescue effort. The Civil Defence have just announced that New Zealand Defence Force helicopters are now moving people to Kaikoura in and out, and a Civil Defence Centre has been set up to sort of give you an idea of how strong that quake was and how strong the aftershocks have been. There's been about 400 that have sort of rippled and popped up through the South Island and the top of the South Island since that initial quake at midnight local time. So one seismologist has said the force of the shake was so strong and so violent, there has actually been a permanent shift in the land structure around the top of the island. So that gives you some idea of the violence of that shake. And as you reported initially, just in the last 15 minutes, we've got reports coming through that the slip dam on the Clarence River, that's near the Kaikoura, which is one of the areas most affected, that wall of that dam has now been breached, and there's a wall of water reportedly heading downstream. So residents there are being urged to go to higher ground immediately. So that's another safety issue, as well as these ongoing aftershocks that's complicating the rescue and recovery missions.
And Caitlin, how are people feeling? I imagine they're still feeling incredibly rattled. These aftershocks are incredibly strong. 6.2 magnitude. It's another huge quake in itself, isn't it?
Well, that's right, and I think that's the thing that we tend to forget sometimes with aftershocks, is that essentially they are just small earthquakes. So that whole sort of eastern cuff of the South Island has just been rattling and pinging all day. And also Christchurch, which is one of the areas that's really badly damaged, down in that sort of lower half of the South Island. There was an earthquake there in 2011 that killed 185 people, 1,500 to 2,000 injuries, and they are still rebuilding now from that earthquake. So there's areas around that whole region, infrastructure that's still already damaged and really difficult. So people are, as you say, feeling a bit rattled, a bit freaked out. A lot of this happened at midnight, at night time. So there were families being evacuated at 2 a.m. One person I know who was living in Wellington described the scene as like the ground was like waves of water, and it felt like you were sort of almost trying to surf as you were walking along. So that gives you some idea of how extreme it is and how difficult it is for people.
Thanks very much for that update. Live from Auckland, Caitlin McGee.